House sitting for a billionaire, 7 sinister rules that revealed a cursed, haunted secret. Melissa's hands trembled as she stepped through the towering gates of the mansion, an architectural beast rising ominously against the bright Los Angeles sky. The property, all sleek glass and dark stone, whispered of secrets buried deep within its walls. Just house sitting, she repeated to herself, but a shiver crept down her spine. Jake's laughter faded, leaving only the echo of the closing door behind them. The instant chill in the air felt like a warning. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The servants had all disappeared, and the wealth wrapped around this place only thickened the tension. Jake's wide eyes mirrored her own unease as he clutched a stuffed dinosaur, oblivious to the oppressive air that filled the mansion. It was as if the house breathed, sighing with every creak of the floorboards beneath their feet. Tacked to the pristine wall, a note from the mysterious billionaire offered 7 sinister rules: never go outside after dark, stay off the second floor, don't use the master bedroom, keep the door locked at all times, avoid the basement, never speak to anyone you meet outside, and trust no one. Each rule was like a chain binding her, tightening with every passing moment. As dusk approached, shadows crept along the walls, stretching and curling like fingers reaching out from the unknown. "Mom," Jake whispered, breaking the suffocating silence. "Can we explore?" The innocent suggestion gnawed at her. The first rule hung heavy in her mind, but the house stirred within her. Strange noises echoed, a low groan, like the very structure was coming alive, a heartbeat beneath the wood. Flickering lights danced ominously in the hallway, shadows shifting and darting away as if something lurked just out of sight. "Maybe tomorrow, buddy," she replied, forcing a smile. But the air felt wrong. The locals, initially friendly, eyed her with a blend of pity and fear, as if they knew of the darkness that hid inside the mansion. Whispers taunted her. "Cursed," they called it. "Stay away." As night enveloped them, Melissa's heart raced with the weight of unspoken dread. She could hear the whispers of the mansion, beckoning her closer, promising secrets beneath its polished surface. The clock's ticking echoed like thunder in the silence, amplifying her anxiety. But curiosity pulled at her feet like a magnet. Against her better judgment, she found the hidden door leading to the second floor, each step forward laden with fear. The darkness swallowed her as she stepped into the forbidden space. Everything felt off: pictures hanging crookedly, books open to pages about tragedy and loss. Shadows clung to the corners, whispering secrets only the walls understood. A chill ran through her, wrapping around her throat, squeezing tighter until the air felt thin. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. "Jake!" she gasped, feeling the air shift and crack around her like the moment before a storm. She could almost hear the murmur of lost souls thrumming against her ears. Panic clawed at her throat as urgency surged. What if bending the rules sealed their fate? Anxiety turned to terror when she noticed ghostly figures swirling beyond the windows, beckoning and pulling her, whispering words that made her skin crawl. Shadows darted, and sudden movement set her racing heart in overdrive. A faint knock echoed from the door, sharp and distinct in the silence, a promise or a threat. Who was out there? Hope flickered momentarily, maybe someone on the other side. Could help, except what if it was the thing the rules warned her against? Staring into the darkness beyond, she felt Jake grip her hand tighter, his small fingers trembling in fear. Melissa stood frozen, paralyzed by the weight of the unknown. The mansion's sighs grew louder, the shadows darker, and she suddenly realized she was on the edge of a decision that could seal their fate forever. Who could really be trusted when even the walls of the mansion seemed to hold their sinister secrets? Melissa's heart pounded in her chest, the sound echoing in her ears like thunder. The knock came again, insistent now, as if whatever lurked behind the door was growing impatient. Agony twisted in her stomach. "Jake, we should stay quiet," she whispered, but her words were swallowed by another sharp rap. "Mom, what if it's someone who can help us?" Jake's voice trembled with confusion. His innocence pierced through her fear, igniting a flicker of hope. What if it was a neighbor, someone who could explain the bizarre rules? But as she glanced toward the door, dread washed over her. The air thickened, weaving a web of darkness around them. That knock carried with it a weight unnatural, as if something unspeakable lingered just out of sight. The very walls of the mansion seemed to inhale, waiting, watching. "Stay close," she instructed, gripping Jake's small hand as if it was a lifeline. They edged toward the door. The wood looked gnarled, twisted, aged far beyond its years, almost pulsating with a life of its own. Melissa stood still, a breath away from panic, deliberating if they should open it or find solace in running away. A faint voice, barely a whisper and entirely unfamiliar, slipped through the crack, sending a chill racing down her spine. "Help me, did you hear that?" Jake's eyes widened, flicking up to meet hers. Breath hitching, she nodded, in a slow, agonizing motion. "Help me please, Mom, we should let them in," Jake urged, inching toward the door. "They need us." "No!" she snapped. The encompassing shadows seemed to tighten around them, crushing her resolve. "We can't trust anyone." But her voice trembled, betraying her certainty. What if the rules were just lies meant to trap them? Could it be a trick? An apparition meant to lead them to their doom? The stories about the cursed mansion flooded back into her mind, each local's warning echoing in her thoughts. Suddenly, the knocking ceased, replaced by an unsettling silence that felt too vast, too ominous. A fleeting thought crossed her mind: had they left? Or were they simply waiting for their chance? The dead air suffocated her, tangling with painful fears. What were they supposed to do? Just as she was about to retreat, the door creaked open slightly, as if pushed by an unseen force. Melissa's breath caught in her throat, her instinct screaming to run. But curiosity, burning like a lamp in her heart, held her feet to the floor. A figure stood just beyond the threshold, silhouetted against the void that lay beyond the doorway. It was too dark to discern its features, yet an unsettling familiarity prickled at her. A soft, chilling laugh echoed from the figure, twisting in her gut like a knife. The voice, the same lost, pleading tone, turned her blood to ice. "Help me, you must help me," the figure whispered, but there was a deeper, more sinister tone lurking underneath. In that moment, a gruesome realization shot through her. The entities in the house weren't just restless spirits, they came to twist and ensnare, using the desperate pleas to bait the living. The mansion thrummed with a sinister energy, feeding off their fear. "Jake, back away!" she gasped, grabbing her son and pulling him back into the shadows of the room before they fully revealed themselves. As the figure stepped forward, the darkness split a little, unveiling the outline of its face. Melissa screamed, a sound jagged and raw, for she recognized the hollow eyes locked onto her. Eyes that hadn't seen light in decades. A crooked grin stretched across the figure's face, its mouth contorting into something grotesque. "You're too late," it hissed, sinister glee flickering in its eyes. With the whispers rising, brushing against her skin like icy fingers, she felt the walls trembling, shaking with anticipation. Then, without warning, the door slammed shut, plunging them back into the oppressive darkness. "Mom!" Jake cried, terror fueling his voice. But the house responded, shuddering, alive with murmurs of ancient dread. Melissa's heart raced wildly as she felt the floor beneath her tremble. Shadows danced, and claustrophobia gripped her tightly, twisting her insides. What had she unleashed by stepping beyond rule number 2? Fear clawed at her chest. With nowhere to run, the only question that screamed in her mind was, who is the true prisoner in this cursed house? The rules turned to dust as dread spiraled into the night, leaving one terrifying truth: there was nowhere to hide. And then she heard a whisper, just as soft as before, you will join us. Could she unravel the mansion's dark threads, or would she become another ghost within its walls? The walls shivered like a living thing, the very air thickening, enveloping Melissa and Jake in an inescapable grip of dread. She clutched her son tighter, feeling the cool sweat trickle down her back. The sinister eyes from beyond the door haunted her thoughts, creeping uninvited into her mind like an unwelcome guest. "Mom, I don't like this," Jake whimpered, looking up at her with eyes wide and too trusting. She felt her throat tighten but forced a smile, one that cracked under the weight of her fear. "Stay quiet," she whispered back, taking a shaky step backward, retreating from the unsettling silence. She could feel Jake's small breaths, trembling with each sound that filled the suffocating darkness around them. The house seemed to breathe, each creak and moan echoing their shared pulse fast and panicked. "Did they really go?" Jake asked softly, glancing back at the door, his curiosity battling with fear. Jeremy had always told him stories about doors that led nowhere, but did they really exist? In this place, full of shadows and whispers, who knew what was real? "No." The word slipped out harshly. "We need to move." She needed to find a way out. Where was the window? Had she even noticed one? No, every inch of this place was a confining maze, a cruel trick set to ensnare them further. The only escape was further into the darkened hall, where whispers lurked like shadows taunting, beckoning. "Let us check the other room," Melissa managed, her voice barely above a whisper. They moved, stepping into another vast space, this one dimly lit by a flickering light that sputtered in the corner like a wounded creature. The air felt colder here, as if the walls absorbed heat. Old furniture loomed, casting distorted shapes that danced near her periphery. It was like they were being watched, and though she told herself she was being paranoid, something primal stirred within her. Her heart raced as she spotted an old mirror hanging crookedly on the wall, its surface dusty and covered in cobwebs. For a fleeting moment, she pulled Jake close and turned to inspect it, thinking maybe they could see something, anything, in its reflective depths. But the glass offered only darkness, a void that seemed to swallow their reflections. Melissa shuddered. There was something alive in that space, a presence watching her through the mirror, and when she blinked, she swore she saw movement, a shadowy figure standing just behind her, inching closer. "Mom?" Jake's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her back into the moment. "Let us go now," she hissed, diving toward the archway at the other end of the room. They raced back into the hallway, the shadows seeming to stretch and twist around them. The murmurs from the walls grew louder, vibrating like a swarm, gnawing at her sanity. And then she stopped cold, her heart nearly stopping. At the end of the corridor stood another door, solid and imposing, marked with the same ancient symbols that adorned the first. A grotesque feeling slithered down her spine, forcing her to move backward. But something compelled her to look closer. "Mom," Jake tugged at her sleeve, his small voice breaking her daze, "we need to go." But she couldn't shake the sensation that the door beckoned her. What lay on the other side? Safety? Or another trap waiting to ensnare them? She hesitated only a moment, driven by maternal instinct, by fear, by something deeper, darker. "Jake, we can't." Suddenly, they heard it. The door creaked open, slowly, agonizingly slow, revealing just a sliver of the void beyond. A gust of frigid air rushed out, wrapping around them like icy fingers, pulling at their resolve and whispering secrets that clawed at their minds. "Mom, run!" Jake screamed. With that, she turned, adrenaline spiking, and they bolted back down the hallway as laughter echoed behind them, deep, mocking, and sinister. What waited for them in that room, in the heart of the mansion? What waited if they ran? Their breaths clouded the thick air as they sprinted toward the only light. They had to find a place to hide. But shadows loomed everywhere. They went, whispering in a language they could never understand, waiting for them to falter, waiting to claim them. Then came the echo of a child's laughter, sweet and innocent, slicing through the darkness like a knife. "Turn back," the voices in the walls murmured. "What is happening?" Jake cried, eyes wide with terror. Melissa gritted her teeth, heart thundering. Darkness loomed closer, a predator anticipating its prey. A flicker of a thought struck home. If they didn't escape soon, they would find out what happened to souls who lingered too long in the shadows. Could they find a way out, or would they become the next whispers in the walls? They ran, mouths dry, hearts pounding like drums in an empty hall. The laughter echoed again, mocking and high-pitched, swirling around them and mingling with their frantic breaths. It was everywhere, filling the air with a sweetness that rotted like forgotten fruit. "Mom! Where do we go?" Jake's voice wavered, slipping through the shadows that crept along the walls like something alive. Melissa had to think fast. The fear of the unseen tightened her chest. "Just keep moving," she urged, pulling him forward, but instinct whispered frantically that they were just prolonging the inevitable. The house was a trap, and they were its prey. They rounded a corner, stumbling into a small room, cluttered with overturned chairs and dusty remnants of forgotten lives. The walls leaned in, closing the gap, and the flickering light barely cut through the deepening dark. "Is this a safe place?" Jake asked, his voice shrinking with hope. Melissa shook her head. She felt it, a presence, pressing against her skin. It was all too wrong. "We need to hide," she said. She spotted a closet in the corner and pulled Jake toward it. They squeezed inside, hearts racing, breaths quick and shallow. Darkness swallowed them whole, they huddled in the cramped space. Outside, the laughter grew closer, morphed into whispers that danced like smoke around them, pushing at the fragile barrier of the door. "Why did we come here?" Jake whispered. "I want to go home. I'm scared." "We'll get out, Jake," she replied, though uncertainty gnawed at her. She wanted to believe her own words, but the flickers of light that came from beneath the closet door were dancing unnaturally, like fingers eager to pull them into the gloom. Another loud bang echoed from the other side of the room. Something large had crashed to the floor. Melissa stifled a gasp, holding Jake closer. They could hear footsteps now, slow and deliberate, echoing like a drumbeat, closer and closer, weaving through the scattered debris. "Is someone there?" A voice called out, low and smooth, weaving through the scattered furniture like a serpent searching for prey. Melissa's muscles tensed. The voice was neither welcoming nor threatening. It was filled with a dark curiosity, as if it found delight in their fear. "No one's here," Jake whimpered softly, but Melissa shushed him. She felt her own breath quickening as the footsteps stopped just outside the door. The silence stretched taut in the air. She strained her ears. The shadows seemed to thicken, prodding at her sanity. Then, something bumped into the closet door, rattling it slightly, sending a shiver down her spine. "Mom, I can't breathe," Jake whimpered, his small body trembling. "Just a little longer." "We're okay," she hissed through gritted teeth, forcing herself to remain calm. But inside, panic brewed like a storm. Suddenly, the door creaked open, light spilling into the closet and illuminating the space. A figure stood there, silhouetted against the dim glow, its features obscured, but Melissa could feel its gaze piercing through the darkness. "Why are you hiding?" The voice cooed, unervingly sweet. "Don't you want to play?" Without thinking, Melissa shoved Jake deeper into the corner and bolted from the closet, hoping to confuse whatever was lurking. She sprinted across the room, danger now a palpable force behind her, a shadow chasing her steps. Yet the moment she reached the door, it slammed shut, locking her inside as Jake screamed from the hidden confines. "Jake!" she shouted, panic rising like bile. She clawed at the door, but it wouldn't budge. From the shadows, a soft laugh echoed again, sending chills dancing down her spine. "You think you can escape?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face twisted into an unsettling smile, eyes gleaming with the madness of this forsaken house. They seemed to draw closer, and Melissa felt the walls pulse unnaturally, understanding now that the mansion was alive with hunger, a hunger for fear, for despair. "What do you want?" she yelled. "Just to help you," the figure replied, reaching out a hand, pale fingers brushing the light. 2. show you the truth." Melissa recoiled, and for the first time in her desperate flight, she realized there was nowhere left to go. Had they come here on borrowed time? The chill of the shadows deepened, and a terrible thought struck her. Perhaps the house wouldn't let them leave at all. As the figure advanced, closing in, Melissa demanded, "What truth?" The laughter drowned out her voice, swirling into an agonizing crescendo. There was no way out, only the darkness that thrummed with dark curiosity, pulling them into its depths. And then the room went silent, the air thickening, saturated with dread. What awaited them now? Would the truth be more terrifying than the whispers that pursued them? The silence was barely a moment's reprieve before the figure lunged forward, the pale fingers seeming to stretch endlessly as if the darkness itself was extending a grotesque invitation. Melissa stumbled back, her back pressed against the cold, unforgiving wall. She could feel her heartbeat echo in her ears, drowning out any rational thought. "Mom!" Jake's voice, now a high-pitched wail, tore through the stillness. It sent shockwaves through her, making her stomach churn. She fought against the shadows swirling toward them, her legs feeling leaden, and desperation surged to life. "Stop!" she screamed, the words bursting out. She turned, planning to run to the door, but it loomed, its presence oppressive, a barrier infused with dread. She could hear Jake sobbing behind her, the sound sharp and haunting. "Come back, sweet Melissa. We're not done yet," the figure taunted, its smile widening to an impossible extent. "I just want to play." Melissa knew the games this house played. Games without winners. She fought against the urge to look back, focusing instead on the shaking handle of the door. It was no use, it remained immovable, as if the house itself siphoned her hope, drawing it into the shadows. She turned again to the figure. It had taken a step closer, its face now illuminated by the flickering light, a sickly expression of delight playing on its features. "You don't know what they're hiding from you," it whispered, a low hiss that seemed to wrap itself around her throat. "Who?" It was a plaintive attempt to regain control over the conversation, but Melissa's voice trembled under the weight of fear. "Those you love, dear girl. They've left you a little surprise," the figure crooned, its eyes widening into empty pits. "A little game of trust. Isn't that fun?" Melissa had to resist the desire to know more. "You're lying," she shouted, defiance coursing through her veins, igniting her survival instincts. "Let us go." With that, she lunged at the door once more, leaving the taunting figure behind her. The pounding of wood against wood filled the silence as she rattled the handle again and again until the voice called out, vibrant and sweet, "That door won't open until you found the key." With each word, an icy desperation crawled up her spine. She glanced around the room, the clutter within now feeling like a looming threat, the remnants of other lives scattered among her own impending doom. "Look for the key before it's too late," the figure urged, laughter echoing like a swarm of insects. "Forget it," she yelled, her mind racing with the thought of Jake, trapped and terrified. She pounded on the door, but the laughter melded with the deepening shadows, drowning her out, their mocking tone falling heavy around her. She spun her head frantically, scanning the room. There had to be something. The shadows began to twist further, coiling like smoke toward the corners of her vision. Dust-covered furniture leaned in as if anxious to brush up against her, offering its secrets. Driven by desperation, she forced herself to push through them. "We need to find it," she murmured to herself, as much for reassurance as an attempt to dismiss the creeping dread that stung her senses. Suddenly, her fingers brushed against something cool and metallic beneath a broken chair, a small key laying forgotten among the debris. A thrill shot through her, slicing through the dread. "Jake! I found something!" she yelled, but no answer came. Panic seized her as the laughter turned from playful to something darker, more sinister. "Careful now. You wouldn't want to play with that key just yet," the figure warned, creeping closer. "Your time is running out." Melissa's heart raced as she slid the key into the lock of the door. Moments stretched, seconds feeling like hours. Had she made a mistake? The figure danced between the frantic flickers of light. "Mom!" Jake's voice echoed from the darkness, drowned in sorrow. Then there was a click, a sliver of hope igniting her spirit. She yanked the door open, revealing a corridor cloaked in shadows, desperation pulling her forward. But before stepping out, she paused. A cold realization gripped her heart. Was it Jake who lay beyond, or was it a trap forged from the depths of the house's sinister desires? And then she heard it, a soft giggle tinged with malice, winding through the suffocating air. You can't save him. With your heart so full of fear, what awaited her in the corridors ahead? What truth would she uncover as the house kept lurking, threatening to consume all light? Melissa stepped into the corridor, the cold air licking her skin like a whip. Shadows darted along the walls, forming grotesque shapes that seemed to whisper secrets of despair. The laughter from the figure echoed with chilling persistence, wrapping around her as if the very architecture of the house conspired against her. "Jake!" Her voice rang out, trembling yet fierce. She pushed deeper into the darkness, the flickering lights ahead gleaming ominously. Each step sent echoes ricocheting around her, drowning any hint of safety. The floor creaked beneath her weight, the sound eerily mocking. The corridor was a maze, composed of doors that loomed like towering sentinels, each promising strange discoveries and possible doom. She chose one, instinct urging her on. With a swift motion, she flung it open, revealing a room engulfed in shadow. Only the faint rustle of fabric broke the heavy silence. "Jake?" She peered in, eyes straining against the darkness. A chill crawled down her spine, seeping through her skin. The room was empty, save for a tattered rocking chair that swayed slightly, as if kissed by the breath of a ghost. She stepped inside, the door creaking ominously as it swung shut behind her. Fear constricted her throat like a vice. Then she heard it. A soft, thudding sound, rhythmic and persistent. It pulsed from a corner shrouded in darkness, and Melissa's heart threatened to explode. "Jake?" she whispered, fear winding around her tongue. She took a tentative step closer, clutching the key tightly, as if it offered some magical protection. The thudding grew louder, more erratic. It sounded almost like a heartbeat. "Mom?" The voice was faint, barely above a whisper, yet it sent her heart racing. It was him. Jake was near. She spun towards the noise, desperation propelling her forward. The sound led her to an ancient wardrobe, wood warped and cracked as if it had weathered years of neglect. She hesitated, dread flooding her mind. What awaited her behind those doors? A cruel trap set by the figure? Or perhaps a chance to save her son? With shaking hands, she reached for the handles. They felt freezing to the touch, an omen of what lay ahead. Drawing a deep breath, she tugged them open, and a cloud of dust billowed out, thick and suffocating. It revealed darkness. A deep, endless void that seemed to extend into a realm beyond her comprehension. "Mom!" The clarity of his voice cut through her fear like a knife. She launched herself into the wardrobe, desperate. As she stepped forward, she felt the world crumble around her, a powerful force pulling her in, like waves against the shore. Suddenly, she stumbled into a small, dim room, walls lined with whispers and shadows. The air felt heavy, oppressive, filled with sorrow and regret. A single light bulb swung overhead, illuminating an innocuous-looking table. And on that table lay a pile of old photographs, curled along the edges, faces staring back at her with vacant expressions. Melissa rushed forward, desperation clawing at her throat. "Jake!" She shouted again, scanning the room, but her eyes were drawn to the pictures. Each one showed a family, laughing and smiling, seemingly joyful until she noticed the eyes. Empty, hollow. It felt wrong, sickening. A cold wind swirled around her, ruffling the photographs. A whisper slithered through the air, chilling her. "Look closer," it beckoned, playful yet sinister. Before she could react, a sharp sound cut through the silence. The door behind her slammed shut, echoing like a gunshot. Panic surged in her chest. She felt trapped, encased within the house's malevolence. Jake! She cried once more, urgency overwhelming. Was he near? Or had something darker taken him? The shadows danced closer, the whispers swirling like a storm. The laughter began again, mingling with her cries, creating a cacophony that threatened to consume her. Time to play, the voice sang, dripping with malice. Melissa's mind raced. She needed to find Jake. But what kind of game was the house playing? Could she solve the mystery, or was she merely stepping into a stronger trap set to ensnare her too? Then a flicker of movement caught her eye. Was that a glimpse of a small figure darting down another shadowy corridor? Was it Jake? Hope and terror intermingled as she made her choice. With every ounce of courage, she sprinted after the flicker, not knowing if she would find her son or walk into an even darker fate. What unseen threat lingered in those shadows? What would she have to sacrifice to save Jake? The house held its secrets tightly, ready to unleash its darkness. Melissa hurtled down the corridor, her breath coming in frantic bursts. She barely registered the decor that had grown grotesquely ornate, cobwebs trailing like the wisps of souls long lost. Shadows loomed, lurking just beyond the dim glow of the light bulb swinging overhead. Each flicker cast doubt. A desperate thought gnawed at her. Was it Jake she saw, or merely the haunting trickery of the house? Jake! Where are you? Her voice wavered, but desperation fueled her. She could feel the heavy weight of something unnatural pressing against her, as if the very walls were alive with a dark intent. The flicker disappeared down another opening, a doorway at the end of the corridor. Melissa skidded to a halt and faced the entrance, bracing herself. The laughter echoed again, a sinister melody that wormed its way into her mind. It was almost rhythmic, as if counting down to an unseen horror. Gathering what little courage remained, she stepped over the threshold, the wooden frame groaning like a tortured spirit. Inside was a room draped in shadow, but it pulsed with a sickly warmth that almost felt alive. The air was thick with the scent of rot and something metallic. Jake! She shouted again, straining to see. Her heart raced as she scanned the room. Decay clung to everything, furniture shrouded in dusty sheets, remnants of family memories that had turned into decay. But there, against the far wall, a figure small and frail stood still. Instinct gripped her, a chill and a deep-seated hope warring within her. Jake! She called again. Was it him? Or was it another cruel illusion? The figure turned, and the light caught the outline of wide, terrified eyes that didn't belong in such a familiar face. They were the same eyes, yes, but there was an unfamiliar depth to them, a void that sent Melissa stumbling back. I'm here, Mom. It was Jake, but the voice came wrapped in something hollow, an echo layered with fear. Help me. Please, Mom. She came closer, each step heavy with hesitation. What happened? Where are you? The shadows draped over him like a cloak, and she reached for him, but a force stopped her, an icy grip that twisted around her wrist and pulled her back. Mom, don't! He screamed, terror flooding his voice. Frozen in place, she could only watch as dark tendrils seized Jake, wrapping around him as he fought. Panic clawed at her throat. I have to get you out. What is happening? Her voice rose, sharp and desperate. He struggled against the shadows, but they kept pulling him deeper, dragging him slowly towards a gaping maw that had materialized in the wall, a place of darkness that beckoned with an insatiable hunger. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, she saw the boy she knew slipping away like sand through her fingers. Don't! Her scream shattered the air, panic turning the room into chaos. Suddenly, the shadows that seemed to dance so freely coalesced into shapes, grotesque forms dashing towards her, eyes glistening with malice. They whispered sweet lies that choked her hope. Join us, stay! Melissa stumbled backward, horrified. Behind her, the door slammed shut, sealing her inside the hellish room. She was trapped, forced to face whatever had ensnared her child. Clawing at her mind were the sinister rules of the house, the laughter echoing louder as if celebrating the terror unfurling within her. Jake! She cried again, heart hammering. I will save you. I swear. But each word felt more empty than the last, each breath more labored, as the dark shadows began to swirl, hungry, ready to engulf her in their eternal night. Could she break the house's sinister game? Or would she lose everything she held dear to its terrible depths? And just like that, a new whisper stretched across the air, an eerie echo, almost a dare. Let us see how far you're willing to go. The room shuddered, walls pulsing as if the house itself was breathing. Melissa felt the icy grip tighten around her wrist, dragging her further into darkness. The shadows writhed, murmuring, coaxing her. Stay with us, you'll never have to leave. She knew they were lies, but fear buzzed in her veins. She turned away from Jake, whose face twisted in desperation, and flailed for the door. Let me out. I need to save him. The door loomed behind her, a solid slab of wood that had become her only lifeline. She planted her foot firmly and shoved against it, but it didn't budge. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, tugging at her thoughts as if offering escape from those very thoughts. A dark shape flickered at the edge of her vision. She glanced back at Jake, who was now almost fully enveloped by shadow. Mom, please. Don't leave me. We fight together, buddy. I won't abandon you. Even to her, the conviction in her voice felt frayed. Behind her, a shadow coiled, darting forward like a snake, coiling around her ankle. She gasped, but there was no time for panic. With her free hand, she fumbled along the wall until her fingers grazed cold metal. A lamp? A vase? Her heart raced as she yanked it free, the weight reassuring, familiar. Stay away. She shouted, swinging the object wildly, trying to ward off the encroaching shadows. They recoiled but then surged forward once more. The room dimmed further as her energy waned. She felt it leaching from her as Jake's cries turned desperation to sheer terror. Mom! Help! His voice pierced her heart like a knife, sending adrenaline pumping through her limbs. The shadows shimmered, their forms shifting and twisting. She felt their cold breath against her skin, the air thick with despair. She took a breath, willing herself to focus, her trembling fingers tightening around the metal object. Jake! Hold on. She rushed toward him, battling against the tendrils wrapping around his body. He was almost hidden in the thick, dark mist, his cries growing more distant. She swung the lamp again, connecting with one of the shadowy appendages that hissed and recoiled like a struck serpent. That moment of connection charged her spirit with hope, a thin, flickering flame igniting inside her. You won't take my son. The words roared from her, cutting through the fog of despair. With renewed vigor, she charged forward, swinging her makeshift weapon, connecting with another entity, and then another. Each strike broke the hold they had over Jake, if only for a heartbeat. She could see him clearer now, his face pale and streaked with shadows, but no longer lost in total darkness. Mom! He cried again, this time with a glint of hope. It momentarily brightened in his eyes, mingling with the terror. Grab my hand. She shouted, but the shadows, sensing their hesitation, thrashed violently, throwing Jake against the wall of darkness. No! Melissa screamed, lunging forward, even as the house began to shake, angry with her rebellion. The fabric of reality felt like it was ripping apart, the laughter of the house throbbing in her ears. Feeling the ground tremble beneath them, she dug her feet in, determined. I can't let you go, Jake. We're getting out of here, damn it. But just then, a deep, rumbling voice echoed throughout the room, cold as grave dirt. You misunderstand. Here, it's not about what you want. It's about what you are willing to sacrifice. The shadows shifted, swirling faster, inundating Melissa's senses, her vision blurring as terror crept into her bones. Every ounce of courage began to waver as the room seemed to expand, distorting her thoughts. What dark price would she have to pay? As she caught a glimpse of Jake's fading smile, something deep within her cracked. She couldn't lose him to this nightmare, not now. Please don't take my son, but, standing before her was a choice she hadn't anticipated, a choice between saving Jake and protecting herself. Would she dare pay the price the house demanded? The shadows lunged again, dark tendrils reaching and twisting, eager to reclaim what was theirs. Melissa ducked, narrowly avoiding the grasping fingers, her heart pounding like a war drum. Each beat echoed her desperation, urging her forward, toward Jake, who fought against his own dark prison. "Stay strong," she yelled, forcing her way through the fog, attempting to suffocate her. Each swing of her weapon sent shards of hope scattering through the air, pushing the shadows back, if only for a moment. But with every step, the weight of despair crashed upon her like a wave, crashing against walls of courage that threatened to crumble. The deep voice reverberated again, resonating within the confines of her mind. "Sacrifice, what does it mean to you?" Melissa shook her head fiercely, blocking out the whispers. Sacrifice. The very word clawed at her, a tenacious beast demanding an offering. She couldn't think about it. Not now. She forced her focus on Jake. His eyes were wide, filled with fear, but beneath it, she saw flickers of defiance. The boy she knew. "Mom, don't let them take me. Fight." His plea sent a jolt through her. Fight. Yes. Not just for him, but for herself. The shadows recoiled a fraction more. She pressed on, adrenaline igniting her determination like gasoline on a fire. "Hold on, Jake." She squeezed the lamp tighter, feeling its cool metal, and envisioned her son safe in her arms. It was a vision too powerful to dismiss. In a wild surge, she rushed toward him, swinging the lamp with all her might. It struck true, dispersing a wave of darkness that temporarily broke the shadow's grip. For a moment, Jake was free, light pouring through the cracks of the nightmare. "Mom!" he shouted, reaching out desperately. "Take my hand." But as he lunged toward her, the shadows retaliated, seeping closer, like ink in water. They surged, dark waves crashing, forcing Melissa backward, stealing her strength. She stumbled, falling to the ground, breathless, desperation squeezing her throat. Suddenly, the voice returned, louder and harsher. "For every action, a debt must be paid. What do you offer in exchange for his life?" Melissa froze. The question wrapped around her mind, chilling her blood. What could she give? What did she possess that was worth saving Jake? Her mind raced as truths struck like lightning. She had always been stubborn, always wanting to be the hero. But the stakes had risen beyond her understanding. The shadows cloaked her, flickering with uncertainty, as if sensing her hesitation. The house throbbed with anticipation, hungry for her response. A sickening dread washed over her, curling into her gut. "Anything," she breathed, barely above a whisper. "I'll do anything." The words echoed back, ringing hollow against her ears. "And what's anything worth?" The voice darkened, morphing into twisted laughter that tore through the air. Shadows tightened around her like a vice, expectations woven into their grasp. Melissa's breath hitched. She glanced once more at Jake, his face twisted in fear, his eyes wider than she'd ever seen. "Mom!" he cried out again, urgency piercing through the gloom. The shadows pulsed around her, as if pleased with her answer. "Then you understand the game," the voice rasped, now filled with a sickening glee. "One of you will emerge. The other will remain." "No!" Melissa screamed, rage and despair erupting together. But the room darkened further, the walls shimmering like dark waves, and a cacophony of whispers enveloped her. A choice, a price. She could feel it, tangled in her thoughts, twisting like venom around her heart. "What do you want?" she cried, her voice raw with fear. The shadows paused, drawing in close, as if considering her plea. Brief silence hung in the air, thick with the weight of her choices. In that moment, an idea struck her, a plan solidified. She would not be a pawn in this game. The shadows may take what they wanted, but she would take something back. It wasn't just about sacrifice, it was about strategy and survival. "Let me hear your demands," she said, a tremble in her voice but determination blazing in her eyes. "Only then will you know the shadows pulsed." And in that trembling uncertainty, something deep within Melissa ignited. She would unravel this darkness, piece by piece, and risk everything. But as the shadows flicked and faded momentarily, a chilling thought pierced her: what if there was more to this game than mere survival? What if what the shadows craved was her very soul? The darkness swirled, a living thing eager to consume her. Melissa stood at the precipice of despair, her breath hitching as the malevolence around her whispered promises of power and knowledge. "You think you can bargain?" The voice sneered, dripping with cynicism. "What are you willing to give up?" "I'll trade anything, my freedom, my will." She felt the words spill from her lips with unexpected conviction. A pause. The shadows seemed to coalesce, contemplating her offer, curling around her ankles like an icy grip. She sensed the anticipation, a shared hunger radiating from the walls. "Ah, but it's not just your will we desire, it's something much closer, your essence," the voice crooned, sultry and tempting, wrapping around her mind like tendrils of smoke. "No. You can't have my soul," Melissa shouted, determination carving steel into her resolve. "You may threaten me, but I refuse to give you that. I'll fight." The shadows writhed, revealing desperate faces with hollow eyes, vacant histories. Those lost souls murmured promises of release, their hands extending toward her, fingers reaching from the abyss. "Fight?" The voice echoed back, mockingly playful. "We already have a choice. This is about you versus the boy, a life for a life. You are the wall between what you love and what you fear." Melissa's heart raced as she considered the figure of Jake, lost in the vastness of drowned sorrow, his wide eyes searching for her. "You can't take him. He has a life to live." Yet the shadows pressed closer, sending spikes of doubt through her heart. What if Jake's life meant her own demise? The question lurked like a ghost in the corners of her mind. But she couldn't let fear claim her. Summoning all her courage, she took a step closer to the writhing darkness. "Then let us play," she declared. "But you will not win." The house trembled, shadows recoiling before her ferocity. Perhaps she couldn't fight them with sword or fist, but with ferocity of spirit, she could match their darkness. The room shifted, the very air humming with tension. "Now the game begins," the voice called softly, its tone laced with deep malice. Tendrils of shadow shot forth, flaring like bolts of lightning, but Melissa stood her ground. "Bring it on," she growled defiantly. The energy crackled in proximity, and with each surge of darkness, she felt warmth unfurling within her, something not born from fear, but hope. It ignited a spark, emboldening her with a fire she forgot she possessed. The shadows lunged, but Melissa swirled into motion. They came at her like a storm, hissing and swirling, desperate to entrap her. But in that moment, she reached deep within, envisioning Jake's face, his essence like a beacon against the dark. "I am more than a pawn," she roared, swinging the lamp harder, with renewed fervor radiating through her strikes. Each connection she made cut the darkness, echoing her resolve, a warrior against the assimilating void. As she fought through the haze of shadow, a jagged crack appeared in the wall of shadows, illuminating the way. "Jake! I'm coming!" she bellowed, charging for the light, her determination like a cannonball hurtling forward. "Mom! Help me!" Jake's voice rang out, thrumming in harmony with her heart. The distance between them morphed into a chasm of anguish. She felt every second stretch endlessly. In a final burst of energy, she hurled the lamp into a horde of shadows, light cascading like a beacon, scattering them with explosive fury, as she barreled toward her son, arms wide open. "Hold on, my love!" The shadows shrieked, retreating as she broke through their grasp, wrapping herself around Jake as their fingers coiled in protest. She had him. They tumbled into the fissure of light, and together they surged forward, shoulder to shoulder, bracing against the darkness. With a fierce pull of purpose, she twisted and pulled him from the brink, clutching him close as they fell into the warm embrace of the light. The house quaked as if in protest. Shadows writhed angrily, their cries a cacophony of despair as the light poured like molten silver, igniting the darkness. "You will not take him," she howled, knowing deep within that their fight wasn't just for survival, it was for each other. With one last, fierce inhale, she stepped fully into the light, Jake at her side. An explosion rocked the house, sending shadows into the void from which they'd come. The mansion shuddered, a final gasp, and with a resounding crack, the oppressive darkness shattered into fragments, scattering like dust in the wind. Nothing but silence remained, leaving only the golden glow that poured through the once ominous halls. Melissa and Jake found themselves in the garden, surrounded by swaying trees and blooming flowers, light spilling down upon them like rain. "Mom," Jake breathed, wide-eyed with disbelief, relief flooding his express. "We did it. We escaped." "Yes, we did," she whispered, pulling him into a fierce embrace. Tears poured down her cheeks as she cradled him, warmth radiating through their beings, an essence untouched by darkness. They made their way to the towering gates where hope stretched before them. As they stepped through the gate and into the world outside, Melissa looked back at the mansion, the once grand structure now merely an ominous silhouette against the sky, forever a reminder of courage, love, and standing against the shadows. Together, they turned, hearts unwavering, ready to embrace a future where light would guide them, and the darkness could hold no power over them. Now, true fans, this is where you come in. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss more exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support means everything. Don't forget to flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this thrilling conclusion. We want to hear from everyone, and listen up, this is important. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word. Your support keeps this channel alive.